Hey everybody, this is TJR, and just wanted to start first by saying I've been away for a couple days, haven't been able to make any new videos over the weekend, and this is due to just a lot of obligations that pulled me away, and but I'm back now, and I want to take a moment here to talk about the new single by Roger Waters, which is entitled Smell the Roses. Now, this is an advanced single, and you can stream it on YouTube, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music. You can stream it everywhere. And it's going to be released on his upcoming album, Is This the Life We Really Want?, which will be released on June 2nd. Now, this is Roger Waters' first album since 1992's Amused to Death. And I have to be blunt here. I have never really connected with Roger Waters' solo work. I have tried on numerous occasions. I've listened to albums when they came out and not connected, but then years later come back saying, well, maybe I'll hear it in a different light now. Still haven't really connected. And I have tried. So it was surprising today when I first played this new single and found myself grooving to it. And I guess it should be no surprise that I was grooving to it, because the song, musically and texturally, sounds like Pink Floyd. Now, of course, if anyone has a right to sound like Pink Floyd, it's certainly a former member of Pink Floyd, and also a former member who was one of the group's principal songwriters and one of the group's lead vocalists. The song Smell the Roses does have a very definite Pink Floyd blues, rock vibe that is very similar to Have a Cigar. In fact, other critics have noted that it has a similar type of feel and swagger to it. And while I'm sure that David Gilmour is not playing guitar on this track, there is a very David Gilmour-esque sound to the guitar solos, and in just the sound, the tone, and also in how they're phrased. Also, I noticed on this recording, Roger Waters, his vocals sound a bit different. I almost, for a few brief moments when he first started singing, thought maybe this was someone else doing the vocals. And I'm certainly not saying that he's trying to sound like David Gilmour, not by a long shot. But he just sounds different. Even in the classic, Pink Floyd albums, Roger Waters was always kind of, at times, not always, but at times, he would strain right up to the breaking point of his voice, right up to the top of his range, and sometimes he would crack. And it never bothered me. I always thought it worked, because sometimes he was like in The Wall, he'd be portraying madness in the lyrics and, a man starting to lose his sanity. And so hearing his voice crack, I thought actually worked rather well. But he's not straining this time. It feels like he's not pushing quite as hard. Maybe it's just the age in his voice, I don't know. But he's no longer trying to slam the top of his range like he used to. Also in the track, there is this dark, ominous synthesizer break in the middle of the song that, among other things, features the sound of some dogs barking in the background. So, naturally, I can't help but think of animals when I hear this. And, to be honest, I think that Roger Waters knows that it will be impossible for you, the listener, to not think of that also. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I remember when A Momentary Lapse of Reason was first released. And this was the first album where it was Pink Floyd without Roger Waters. And at this point, I believe the album was basically just David Gilmour and Nick Mason. And I think that's all it was as far as original members at this point. So this was the first album to not feature Roger Waters. And Roger Waters heavily criticized the album. He slammed it for deliberately trying to not only sound like Pink Floyd, or to not just sound like Pink Floyd, but to deliberately evoke specific memories of specific Pink Floyd songs from the past. And while I mostly enjoyed A Momentary Lapse of Reason, I did agree with his criticism. The song Dogs of War, for instance, the The sound of it very much reminded me of Welcome to the Machine in certain aspects, and also the saxophone break reminded me of the saxophone solo in Money. And I felt that happened a lot throughout that album. There was just a lot of things that just sounded like other tracks throughout the record. In fact, looking back, it seems that like throughout his entire solo career, Roger Waters has made this deliberate attempt to always try to sound as not Pink Floyd as possible, which I think might have been to his detriment. But I think it's suddenly interesting now that suddenly he's embracing it. Well, perhaps he has finally decided that it's okay for him to sound like the band that he was such a huge part of. But I do have another thought on this also. Every critic that I have read has written about just how much this new single sounds like it's channeling 70s Pink Floyd, and they're all very ecstatic about it. And once again, I really do believe that Roger Waters wants exactly this response to this advanced single. And I suspect that there is a more calculated reason as well as to why it sounds so much like Pink Floyd. And no, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about cashing in. I'm not talking about anything that cynical. It may be very true that he's finally embracing it, but I also think it's calculated on some level. A press release calls the album an unflinching commentary on the modern world and uncertain times. This is the official press release I'm quoting. And when I look at this song and I read the lyrics certainly live up to this. The lyrics on this song are as sharp and as biting as anything, he did on The Wall. It's clear that he has a lot he wants to say with this album, just from this advanced single alone. Obviously, there's a lot he wants to say. So perhaps he is thinking that the best way to get music listeners to pay attention to what he wants to say is to embrace his past with Pink Floyd. Once again, this is not a cynical comment. So long as the songs are good, I personally think it's a smart move. And quite frankly, I also think it's worked. Like I said before, I have tried many times in the past. I've never really connected with much of his solo work. But now, I'm very interested in hearing this new solo album. And I'm enjoying this song more and more with each listen. So have you heard this new song? What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'm curious to hear your comments. Once again, you can stream the song on YouTube right here or on any streaming service like Apple Music, Tidal, and Spotify. So check out Smell the Roses and let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe. Bye.